Hi everyone, this is Ian from Soundpost News. I'm very fortunate to have a special guest here today. Steven Stucky is professor of composition at Cornell University. He's associated with Los Angeles Philharmonic, Bruce recipient of the 2005 Pulitzer Prize in Music, and widely regarded as one of today's leading composers. Mr. Stucky, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with us today.
Pleasure.
We're here to talk about one of your more recent works, Jeu de Timbres, which will be performed by the Ithaca College Symphony Orchestra this Saturday, October 3rd, under the direction of Jeffrey Meyer. Could you tell us about the 2003 commission of this work?
It was an odd project. The National Symphony, under Leonard Slatkin at that time, developed a project in which they were going to commission encores from something like 10 or 15 composers. So I'm not sure what the philosophy was, whether it was a kind of way of hiding the new music in a safe spot on the program, or it was a way of stretching their dollars, because an encore doesn't cost very much. But I think there was a time limit of 3 or 4 minutes. This piece is 4 minutes, and it was scheduled to be played at the end of a concert in January of 2004 that was part of a French music festival. So that led me down the French path. The title Jeu de Timbres is a kind of, it has two meanings. You could say play of colors or something like that. And that's not a bad description of the piece because it's all about colorful orchestration and kind of vivid textures and so on, which is a usual thing. But Jeu de Timbres is also a regular phrase of French musicians. It's the name of the glockenspiel in French. And I suppose the glockenspiel plays a little in the piece, but it just, so it makes a little inside joke among musicians to use that phrase.
Excellent, excellent. Yesterday in rehearsal with the Symphony Orchestra, you spoke of certain distinctive French moments in this piece. You said just previously that this is not something that's very unique to you. It's something I can find in some of your other works. Just throwing it out there, is there a particular French composer that you identify with particularly?
Well, Debussy, but there's a longer answer, which is to say that the whole tradition of early 20th century French music is kind of my home territory, I think Debussy is one of the greatest giants in the history of music. I think more on a daily basis about Ravel because of his way of handling the orchestra. And so in this little piece, Jeu de Timbres, there's one Ravel quote and another kind of semi-quote, which you may notice or may not, doesn't matter, but they do fit. In other words, it's already a sound world where Ravel doesn't sound out of place.
Speaking more about the ensemble and the director in particular, this is not your first time collaborating with Dr. Jeffrey Meyer. What do you look forward to about hearing his interpretations when you hear that he's going to be performing one of your pieces?
Well, what's happened at Ithaca College over the last few years is that a number of young, really bright, really energetic, really interesting people have joined the faculty. In fact, now over quite a long time. And so those of us who are involved, especially in contemporary music at Cornell, have developed a really strong collaboration. Didn't used to exist. These two places used to ignore each other. But there's a very strong traffic now, especially for 20th century music, and Jeff Meyer's right at the center of that, of course. He's a very brilliant musician as a pianist and a composer and conductor. I've been very impressed watching him work with the orchestra. I watched him do rehearsals of Sally Lamb's piece a couple of years ago. And that was the first time I saw what he could do. And we talk frequently. We hang out together, make programs, scheme about his conducting course that he's started.
Graduate conducting course.
And talk about his programs in St. Petersburg, where he's played my music. So it's a great pleasure to finally be doing this here at home. I've lived in Ithaca for nearly 40 years, and what I mainly do is write for orchestra, but we almost never hear it here because the infrastructure for my orchestral pieces usually doesn't exist. And I'll tell you, this Ithaca College Orchestra, I heard the rehearsal. I heard a rehearsal yesterday as we're speaking now, and it was very, very good. I was really very impressed. All through the orchestra, winds, brasses, strings, percussion, really first rate. So doesn't sound like a student performance at all.
Excellent. Of course, you began teaching at Cornell University in 1980, I believe. So you feel that the overall direction of the music in the Ithaca community and the surrounding communities is really encouraging the new music scene.
There is a surprisingly good audience here, you know, for the kinds of concerts that Ensemble X used to put on, or that they're putting on at Ithaca College. Chris Kim and Cindy Johnson-Turner are doing a lot at Cornell. Jeff Meyer and Steve Peterson and the choral program also doing a lot. I've written a choral piece actually for Larry Dobler's, choral festival. They have a featured composer every year.
Yes.
This year it's me. So I'll be on South Hill more often than usual this fall.
More often this fall. Excellent. So for our viewers who are going to be in the audience on Saturday night, you mentioned there's going to be a small Ravel quote, which you might pick up, you might not.
Yeah, don't look for it. I always think that if you go into a concert thinking it's an exam, and there's some questions you have to answer along the way, you're not going to enjoy it very much. So
Probably not.
I always think that the best advice to listeners, and I include myself, the advice I give myself is, relax and see what happens. Don't think of it as an obstacle course, or as a lecture, or as a seminar, or as something that has a specific content that you're supposed to be tuned into. In my aesthetic, music that doesn't grab you because it's lively or vivid or colorful or dark or dramatic or emotional, that somehow doesn't immediately get your attention, is failing anyway, and then it's not the listener's fault, it's the composer's.
If I were to flip the question from an orchestral musician standpoint, if you had to say anything to them 2 days out from performance, one rehearsal left, dress rehearsal left, what would it be?
Well, they're already doing very well. The piece is a little bit hard. In fact, not a little bit hard, it's quite hard, because it was meant to be a brilliant showpiece for a top professional orchestra.
Yes.
So the fact that they're playing it as if they are a top professional orchestra, and it sounds like a brilliant showpiece, means that they're doing the right things. I was an orchestral musician for a long time, at a fairly low level. I mean college and community orchestras. I was never really a full-fledged professional, but I played the viola for probably 20 or 30 years in orchestras. I know what it's like to be in there. It's my favorite place to be. I miss it, And I try to write orchestral music always from the player's point of view, that there's something not necessarily easy, in fact, often hard, but fun to work out, engaging, real stuff in your part.
Yeah.
It's true that the tuba probably has mostly rests and footballs, but the strings and winds usually get something pretty good to play.
Yes, it's quite the wind part, you've noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there certainly is a sense of accomplishment that comes when you start a piece and go right through to finish. Well, once again, thank you, Mr. Stucky, for taking your time every day to speak with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Be sure to catch Ithaca College Symphony Orchestra, Saturday, October 3rd, Jeu de Timbres, on the director of Jeffrey Meyer at Ithaca College campus in Ford Hall. Again, that's 8:15 p.m. You can find out more about Mr. Stucky through his website, stevenstucky.com. This is Ian, Soundpost News.